GT Countdown. The top 10 Shameless licensed games.
It's one thing to see a billboard for an anti-perspirant in a racing game or duck behind a soda machine in a third-person shooter, but some games have no shame. Apparently the thinking has been, why just show folks a commercial when they can actually play it? We're not saying all of these games are bad. Despite all odds, some are moderately enjoyable, but they're all built just for the Benjamins, and that rarely leads to a gratifying game.
Hef, I'm so glad you're home. Dick, Playboy's chief of staff, said he'd like to see our first issue on the stand soon.
Number 10. Cool Spot.
We don't know what's more ridiculous, a mascot that's nothing more than a circle or a video game based on said circle. Nonetheless, 7-Up's ridiculous character initially starred in a puzzle game for the NES before making his platforming debut in Cool Spot. With Cool Spot featuring the character more prominently, 7-Up really gets its money's worth on the branding front. The sequel, Spot Goes to Hollywood, seems so implausible, it almost makes our heads explode. If Rare can put eyeballs on a broom, a Spot with arms and legs only seems moderately ridiculous, which lands it at number 10.
Number 9. Chester Cheetah.
We all know cheesiness does not necessarily equal easiness, but Chester Cheetah is still one cool cat who made his debut as a junk food mascot back in the 80s. Chester still stars in TV commercials for Cheetos, but he had a short-lived gig as a video game hero in the early 90s. Held against his will at a local zoo, players guide the rhyme-spinning Chester across numerous side-scrolling levels in an attempt to escape captivity. That's easier said than done, though. Too Cool to Fool's difficulty is downright nasty, which makes you wonder how any kid could put up with this piece of garbage. At least the manual contains a discount coupon for Cheetos Paws in the back. As if this game isn't enough, a sequel was made 2 years later called Wild Wild Quest.
Number 8. Yo Noid.
Capcom knows cartoons thanks to its licensed work on the NES and SNES. Essentially a reskinned and localized version of Masked Ninja Hanamaru, Yo Noid brings Domino's Pizza's bunny-eared bouncing nuisance into the interactive space. Seeing release in late 1990, the $1 pizza coupon printed on the instruction manual does little to motivate players to destroy the generic Mr. Green. The bigger question is, why would any parent buy a product that encourages using vulgar behavior as a weapon for good?
Number 7. Kool-Aid Man.
Believe it or not, the punch-drunk pitcher with eyes and an evil smile has his own video game. If you have an Atari 2600 and a passion for crashing through assorted barriers, Kool-Aid Man's shallow and lackluster premise, navigating through the insatiable thirsties, doesn't exactly scream innovation or fun. The opening title screen is the best part about this game. Well, other than the fact that you're playing as a drink pitcher with eyes and an evil smile.
Number 6. Midnight Mutant.
This Atari 7800 adventure doesn't exactly come to mind when you think about, well, just about anything, but its licensing shame makes the most atrophied arthritic finger waggle with righteousness. Atari licensed the likeness of one Al Lewis who played Grandpa Munster on the Munsters TV show. It didn't license the Munsters, or even Grandpa himself, but that didn't stop Atari from putting his campy airbrushed visage and full Grandpa regalia on the box. Did it help sales? It's really hard to say, but when's the last time you were asked, have you played Atari today?
Number 5. Burger King games.
We can cut the king some slack by only offering his 3 video game turds at $4 apiece, but these mediocre minigames are hardly befitting of royalty. When Sneak King, which involves dropping a whopper on unexpected hunger-panged citizens, is the most developed of the 3, you know someone at BK has had one too many milkshakes. Pocket Bike Racer comes in second with Mario Kart sensibilities and a curvaceous cameo from Brooke Burke. Big Bumpin' might seem like a big joke, but it has the highest aggregated review score. Maybe the next time the king should make one decent game instead of 3 awful ones.
Number 4. McKids.
It's easy to write off McKids as a game designed to sell children low-grade hamburger meat and mass-produced plastic garbage, the contents of a Happy Meal in other words, but that would be giving it short shrift. McKids is way more interesting than it is an effective promotional vehicle for McDonald's, though you get the impression that had the fast food giant been paying more attention, the branding would have been much more pervasive. You play as Mick or Mac, 2 adventurous youngsters on a mission to retrieve Ronald McDonald's magic bag, which has been hamburgled. Along the way, you'll encounter some of the NES era's most far-out platforming mechanics. The game may look like a low-rent Super Mario Bros. 3 ripoff at first glance, but it's not. While it's a stretch to call it a great game, you'd be surprised by its depth. Unlike the food it was meant to promote, McKids is far from empty calories.
Number 3. Chex Quest.
Taking the gloom out of Doom and adding a wholesome serving of fiber to the mix is 1996's Chex Quest, quite possibly the strangest union between food and first-person shooter since, well, ever. A total conversion of id's Tech 1 Doom engine, Chex Quest tumbled out of the cereal boxes of our childhood and into the pantheon of the utterly inane, charging players with championing the anthropomorphic Chex warrior against the insufferable Phlegmoid swarm. The weirdest part? It's actually a pretty decent game, garnering just enough popularity over the years to warrant several big fan projects and independent re-releases on the web. Suffices to say that 15 years later, this campy cereal champions still got some crunch.
Number 2. Darkened Sky.
Whoa, easy, sister. I'm on your side.
My side? Who are you?
Judging from the game's box, there's no reason to suspect that the fantasy action of Darkened Sky has any ties to licensing. We chuckle as the opening movie shows an introspective shepherd girl who stumbles upon a jewel with the familiar S inscription. Do they know what that looks like, we ask? Then after a bit of awful combat and cheeky one-liners, an elderly goblin woman reveals all.
By the great rainbow, that, my strange young sapling, is a Skittles.
The jewel truly is a Skittles, and not only does the plot revolve around restoring the rainbow, but your spells are equipped by combining different flavors of candies found in unlikely places throughout the world.
A Skittles. Mysteriously unaffected by centuries of digestive activity. You see, marketing didn't want us to show us Skittles all narfed up from stomach juices, so they decided, I'll shut up now.
Darkened Sky does not fall into the category of surprisingly solid licensed games.
Oh no, we'll never figure out what it says. It's written in
Backwards writing.
Send us all to Prism.
Number 1. Chase the Chuck Wagon.
This is a game about dog food. You might think that would be enough to grab the top shameful spot, but no. Purina's crappy kibble is more than just a lame speck on the face of video gamedom, it's the poster child of the 1983 video game Crash. Why does it get these dubious honors? Because it's a game about dog food. This game did its best to ensure that websites like GameTrailers.com never existed, and for that, it wears the crown as the most shameless licensed video game.